Hello there and welcome. In this video, I will guide you in 7 steps through my new Mystic Pyromancy build, which is basically a rework of the old one, which has been requested recently, and it's been my pleasure to do that. So, number 1 we will talk about is a quick summary about how this build will work, and then we're going to go over all the moving parts of it. All in all, I went for a summoner-centric fire elemental build, because I felt like that was the most I could get out of it. I think this one can work with the School of Attunement as well, but I felt like I would get more power out of it. We are very hungry for summoning, and it works really well. The challenge with this game is its economy, because this build really doesn't have the strongest suit there. Our tomes that we've chosen don't amplify our economy too much, so you'll have to work around that. But the benefit is you have a really powerful army right off the bat, which you can use to get these problems under control. So, let's move over to the racials and the cultural trait for this build. I went here for the classic arcane focus for the Mystics because we have a lot of cultural battle mage units, supporters, you name it. So this comes pretty much as a no-brainer. I picked that almost on every occasion I played this faction. We're also choosing here unicorn mounts. For my personal taste, I love that because all of our key parts of the army will then be stupidly mobile, and I like that. You can choose to your own liking, but I found phasing to be a really valuable asset for this build. Cultural trait-wise, I went with mana channelers because a summoning build is really much more powerful with this trait, in my humble opinion, paired together with powerful evokers. I find this one is a debatable pick. I would recommend, though, to stick to the Shadow Affinity in one way or another, because I find there's just too much in the affinity tree that we want in the Shadow area to not pick this as quick as we can. And Shadow Affinity points come much later down the road with our tome picks. That's the main reason. Also, powerful evokers happens to pair really nicely with what we're feeling a lot. So let's talk tomes. Number 3. I started out with Pyromancy because we are playing a Pyromancy build, but in all fairness, you could start out with Evocation, and I would even assume that it would be a stronger start. Choose to your own liking. I went with the thematic start, and Searing Blades is really good. Fiery Arrows is not interesting at all for us because we are not using arrow units at all. What's much more appealing are the Magma Spirit and the Pyromancer. I think the Pyromancer is for this build much less interesting than the Magma Spirit, but there are times where you need more army and you got more gold than mana. This is where the Pyromancer would shine. They also happen to be a higher tier than the baseline Magma Spirit, but it evolves into a tier 3, which then will be more powerful than the Pyromancer. The Pyromancer's direct takeaway is that they are tier 2, mounted, and they have an AoE skill right off the bat, which is very powerful. The Lesser Magma Spirit needs to be evolved before it can fulfill all those things. Really handy is the Ritual Pyre as well, because it gives us another opportunity to rack in mana. Mana is the lifeblood of this build. The more mana we got, the more fighting power we get. So this is a really nice one. Enough said. Evocation is the other tome we pair it with. Like I said, starting with this one is probably a good idea, because Lightning Focus is really strong on your Arcanists, but if you start with this one, you don't have Fire Spirits to pair it with. Therefore, it's something where you always will miss out on anything. Lightning Blades, together with Fiery Blades, gives us 2 times the 20% damage bonus if the enemy is electrified and burning. This is where our melee units start to go places, and this is also where the Shock Trooper Storm Spirit comes in extremely handy. They do a lot of damage this way, and yeah, they also evolve into some of the best Shock Troopers in the game, which are very hard to hit by ranged attacks, which I personally find one of the most blatant weaknesses of Shock Troopers, and they are highly mobile and inflict enormous amounts of damage. Lovely units. It's just very good to have them. The Evokers, on the other hand, well, they're fitting to the build, but they're not fitting into the Pyromancer fantasy. I'll leave it up to you. They are a different taste of AoE and can be extremely useful if you happen to run into fire-resistant enemies. Channeling Tower just gives us more of the sweet, sweet mana that we need, and a couple of damaging spells, Lightning Torrent being really, really nice. Tier 2, I went for Mayhem. Here again, you could also pick Doom Herald first. Doom Herald probably would be economy-wise the better choice, but here again, I'll leave that up to the player choice. Mayhem is chosen for Mark of Misfortune because we have so much backline action going on, and debuffing the enemy this way gives us the tankiness that we need because we are actually not really strong at frontlining. Gremlins are really a good addition if you can summon some and pay for them. They're excellent troops. They also fit into the fire theme as they are demonic and such. Inside Revolution, I find that an extremely nice pick. Always good on builds that love to utilize infestations, and chaos is a natural fit to that, but we are very heavily versed into chaos, so this is really nice. Sadly, we don't have order to pair it with. So, Doom Herald. That's the other one here. Doom Depth Trench is amazing for this build, and this is one of the reasons why I went here. In my original version, Tome of Summoning was standing here, but I realized that it's just overkill. I don't need that extra supporting quality of the Tome of Summoning, because the Astral School of Summoning does so much of that passively on its own. So here we gain mana and knowledge, get a reward for being evil as well, so you have a alignment direction. We gain something our cultural battle mages will love. Joy Siphoners also goes hard on our cultural melees, but that's mostly spell shields eventually, because the rest of the roster of ours is not really good for melee, but it is something. And Cruel Weaponry, on the other hand, is another excellent power-up for Shock Troopers. Mind you, we have 20% from that blade, 20% from that blade, 30% now on a low morale troop. It really starts adding up. The Banshees, well, sorta. We can summon them cheaply, and we are somewhat good with battle mages, but they are undead and not really a good fit for this build. But on the other hand, there's nothing on them that really opts them out of this build. So, with the tier 3 area, I went here for the Tome of Geomancy. We have the astral affinity that we need, and this one is, for the Geomancers, one thing that I really think it's alone worth it. Geomancers give you a tier 4 battle mage that will dominate the battlefield and is very, very versatile. Also allows you to stun enemies. Powerful stuff. Summon Elemental fits also extremely well into our overall power fantasy. We are good at summoning, we are good at controlling, I love that. Resonant Blades is really good as it debuffs the enemy even further, and the Hall of Geomantic Resonance is good for every city regardless of where it sits. Just put it up, it is useful. Geomantic Crystallization is sadly not really a good option for this build. You could go for it, but I would rather recommend one of the other tier 4 major transformations later. The thing is, we are not going to go into the high tier Materium areas where we could take benefits out of growing into elementals. That being said, it is a very powerful transformation, and if you don't want the later transformations, just go for it. Take the +2 damage on all troops and the resistances, and you're also not bad off. The other tier 3 for this build, Pandemonium. Havoc magic just goes too hard into any battle mage centric build for my taste to opt out of it, and Vessels of Chaos gives sadly only our cultural roster more fighting power, but Geomancers are cultural units. They're tier 4, so it goes somewhere where we can use it. Also, we gain even more toys to summon around with. Chaos Eaters are really, really nice additions. The only downside is that Pandemonium doesn't add in more to our economy power, but it does add in so much to our debuffing capacity and utilizing debuffs, and therefore making us resilient even while we don't have much frontline available. Because up until this point tier 2 shield is as good as it gets on this build, but it works anyways. Don't you worry too much about that. With tier 4, we can pick up Calamity, which brings us plenty of super powerful enchantments, nice frontline units, and this resolves pretty much the dry spell of the lack of frontline units. Very late in the game, but it doesn't matter too much because you have so much blasting power that you will get through with it without any bigger issues. I pair that up with Astral Convergence. Here, you can now pick up Astral Attunement as the other one. If you want to, this is one option, but if you don't want to go Astral Convergence altogether, the nice point is Amplification is a really powerful tome that goes hard for this build as well, because Frenzying Focus and Astral Blood, I think they do more for us than the Astral Convergence, but your mileage may vary. I leave that up to you. I like to top this build off with Archmage, because this has some of the most powerful spells in the game, and yeah, what can I say? Cosmic Overdrive is just so good for any kind of elemental-centric build. It's, yeah. So, let's move on over to number 4, Armies in Combat. So here's where this build is a little bit more complicated. Arcane Guards and Arcanists are basically useless for this build and should only be recruited as few as possible. None of these have any deeper future in our army, and if you need to recruit a few to fluster up your ranks, never be shy to lose them on the front line. We do front line with other troops, and they are really good to fill the blanks for the time in between. When we go for tier 2, things get a lot different. We want those soothers, ideally 1 per banner, because Soothing Breeze is just really powerful and necessary, as well as Spell Channeling does a lot of heavy lifting for us. Spell Shields are excellent troops for our frontline. They also serve as power-ups for our backline. They can teleport, they can AoE stun. They're really, really important for our builds longevity, as these guys are what we put in between the enemy, and they can also teleport where we need them due to the unicorns. Pyromancers are your pop-up fire mages if you don't have the time or the resources to muster up the fire elementals. Overall, it's always better, in my opinion, to have fire elementals, but the pyromancers don't end up being a bad investment compared to the evokers. So before you recruit an evoker, recruit a pyromancer, and if you can't recruit a pyromancer, save up that money to make that happen as soon as possible, because these troops, in my opinion, are dead ends. Rather recruit more summoned units in that regard and build more mana if that is your problem. The summoner is an interesting unit for this build, as they can get ourselves some filler troops for our build, and they power up our magic origin units. Altogether, though, they don't offer any healing, and, well, having 1 or 2 of these is pretty nice, but I find them the most underwhelming troop of the faction, unless I misunderstand something somewhere. I personally found this to be the reason to add in the Geomancers quite badly. Combat-wise, well, it is quite simple. You just put your front line up there, you hope that it lasts, and then you blast things from their back line and repeat. If you lose Arcane Guards or Storm Spirits, it doesn't matter that much. They are meant to be replaced. So let's move over to number 5, Cities and Imperium. For this build, it is massively important to have mana nodes available. Most ideally 2 of them, because we don't have any option to build knowledge province improvements. We're all mana, no knowledge. This is where our misery in terms of economy begins. This build, I did so much thinking about possibilities to weave in some research districts, but all of them ended up with a worse version of the build itself, and that's why I stopped trying it altogether and focused more on the things that we need. Therefore, try to get yourself at least 2 mana nodes per city to get the Researchers Guild possible, which I find one of the most important buildings. Also, rush that research income. This is by far one of the research weakest builds that I've concocted so far. I can't sugarcoat it, but if you want to stick to the fire theme, it just happens. If I stray off of the fire theme, the research income becomes much better, but then it's no longer a pyromancy build, so you get the problem there. But there's a couple of good things on the horizon. Number one, due to the tomes we pick, we get the capability to get into shadow, so knowledge extraction is on the table very early on. Depending when you pick Doom Herald, you also go up until Shadow Binding. The earlier Shadow Binding is available, the more troops you can get yourself. Also, you have a very deep access into Astral, which gives you cheaper research, and seriously, this is really powerful to utilize. The Chaos Affinity that we got gives us several options to gain resources by killing things. Altogether, we have a high reward for being active, and our cities therefore should be focused mostly around getting the resources in that we need most, namely mana and knowledge. But I would always, after my experiences with experimenting around with this build, prefer rushing knowledge over mana, because we have no natural amplifiers for our knowledge generation. Therefore, this must happen as quick as possible. If not, you end up like I did here in this run. We had almost no heroes to kill and such. Turn 40, and I just basically opened up my 4th tome, which is horribly late. I'm well aware of that, but it's also been player mistakes on my end, but it ends up to be a weakness of this build. But like I said initially, the reward that you get is that your troops can be easily racked up, and I failed to mention that because it's a little bit too, I'm sorry. You can use your Astral Echoes to level up the elementals that you recruit. Therefore, having a powerful army is never really a thing of gold for you, so you can invest all of your money into that end. Now, number 6, the heroes. I went for this build with a Wizard King because if you are a mana-hungry build like these guys are, Wizard King goes hard. Also, with the summoners, if we cast a spell, all our magic origin units get a buff and get healed. Therefore, channeling ritual is really good. The other parts of the rituals could, in my opinion, iron out the weakness of the suitors as supporters. They by themselves have, in my opinion, not enough control over the battlefield damage to get you where you need to go. Additionally, paired to that, Spellblades, Mages, Death Knights. I think these are really good add-ons. Feel free to choose differently. I personally found it extremely valuable to level up Experienced Leader and Logistics Training to make sure that we get that unit upkeep low and level up those elementals. You know, if we can save a couple of Astral Echoes, that is not a bad thing at all. Also, I enjoyed leveling up the status resistance reduction because we are trying to inflict tons of statuses onto the enemy. Therefore, you know, it's a pretty nice thing here. One time to show it off. This is something that you can't do if you have enough mana. Boom. Tier 3 unit out of just 150 Astral Echoes. It is pretty nice. Number 7, strategy. So I think I just brought the perfect intro to, with that elemental. This, what you saw there, 23 mana per tier 3 unit, is one of your most powerful traits that you got with this build. Due to the fact that we can summon elementals really cheap, we can even go as far as sacrificing them if you want to. I said it already in the cities and Imperium part. When we want to found cities, cherry picking for mana nodes is extremely important. Make sure that every one of your cities has somehow 2 of these in the vicinity. I failed horribly at this. Sea provinces that have pearl reefs on them work as well because you can put research centers on these as well. But whatever you do, focus on research income because your build has no natural powers on that. I know I keep saying that, but this is so important due to the fact that if you do that, this might be one of the most stupidly strong builds that you can build because elementals are among the most blatantly powerful strategies. So try to set your cities up, careful that you build your economy good, and then get as much of the high tier elementals as you can and clear out the area as quick as you can. And the fun part is, if you manage to have a good stockpile of astral echoes, you can cheese the AI into horrible defeats by having a weak army in front of them, cheesing them into a war declaration because of that, because, you know, the AI looks at your army and decides off of that if they declare war on you. And then you just go there, smack them up into tier 3s and just roll over them. The AI is not capable of foreseeing this move at all, and it is very cheesy, albeit very powerful. So, I'll leave the rest up to you. I love this build for its dynamic playstyle and many things that can go wrong if you don't act proactively enough. But if you do, it rewards you with super stompy gameplay and a lot of fun. Main weakness, fire-resistant enemies. Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave me your comment, leave me your ideas, insights about this build, because I found this one of the most difficult ones to build, as a matter of fact. I had so much thought-wrenching about this, it's insane. Anyways, thumbs up, subscriptions, all welcome. Feel free to support the channel financially via donations, YouTube subscriptions, whatever tickles your fancy. I am deeply appreciating any help of yours. Thanks everybody who does so, and of course, thanks for watching this video up until the very end. Deeply appreciate you taking that time. I hope it was to your liking. Have a nice day.